let's talk about how to turn your character backstories into some absolutely epic adventures. Using your player character backstories to make some epic adventures immediately ties them into the world that you're trying to create. This will further invest your players into your game, and you don't even have to try. You just take who they are, who they were, slap them together, ask some certain hooks, and you will easily have enough plot points to create a great campaign. And better yet, it's personalized to your characters. So there are a few steps involved with this, but I'm going to go through the main 5 that I think are important. The first step is getting your players familiar with the world that they're going to be playing in. Players should know the campaign and know what kind of setting and theme it's going to be to make sure they understand whether or not they want to make a more serious or light-hearted character. Are they going to be more down to earth or harsh and cold? This could help them choose how mundane or exciting the character was before they even started being an adventurer. Where were they from before they started becoming an adventurer? Were they from a small town or a large city? And how did this impact how they thought about the world around them? Do they have any distinct characteristics from a certain region, perhaps an accent or something more physical? What kind of climate did they live in? Were they on top of a mountain? Was it cold? Are they used to that sort of harshness of the winter? Or did they live in a forest and they like the smell of damp earth and they know how to cultivate and hunt the creatures around them? Also, what kind of factions exist in the world? Were they part of one? Are they well traveled? Do they have any knowledge about the world around them at all? Or have they only ever left their town for a day or two? When your characters are deciding to invest themselves heavily in your campaign from the start, don't skimp on the details. And a really good trick for this is let the players help you come up with parts of the world that they're from or that they want to be from. This is just the start of character creation thought process, and it only goes further from here. So my second tip here is choosing a background. Now, this can be done from choosing from a list of backgrounds within a multitude of books, or you can create your own. And then creating a story that surrounds that background might further intensify the ideas that the player had for their character. While your players are coming up with backstories, here are some questions you can ask them to really solidify their ideas. What are they looking for in the world? Or what are they looking for in adventuring? Why do they need it? What is the specific reason that they're after the certain thing that they want and the reason they're on an adventure? Who do they care about in this world? Do they have friends, family, a mentor, or perhaps someone that they are interested in? These 3 questions are very, very big for character development, and they can set up who they are and their motivations for adventuring. You can further expand on this by asking who else do they know in the world? Do they have an uncle that lives 6 towns away? Or maybe they're from a different town originally. Maybe they started somewhere and right now they're in a different place. How do they get to this spot and who do they know around here? And lastly, how do they plan to solve the problem that they have? What are they looking for and how do they plan to get it? These questions should be more than enough to get your players started on creating a fantastic backstory with a lot of little pieces of information that you can pick out as a dungeon master to create quests and plot hooks for them to follow. While you are adventuring in your campaign, the players might not always pick up on subtle little clues, but if there's something about their character and their backstory, you better believe they're going to pay more and more attention to what you're saying. And if your players aren't quite invested in creating the whole backstory, but they just simply pick a background, there are some sort of generic details that you can pluck out from those background options in the player's handbook and create a pretty simple story for their character to follow. For example, someone from your past is trying to find you because you owed them money, or perhaps they think you're responsible for their father disappearing. This is just simple examples, but if your players are stuck for really understanding how their character fits into the world, check out Xanathar's Guide to Everything, where you can kind of roll a few different things on the This Is Your Life section. Okay, tip number 3 for some things to think of when you're creating character backstories and trying to connect them into adventuring is don't skimp on the little details. You might not think these things matter too much to some players, but to others it can mean a real difference in how they view their own character. What was their childhood nickname? What's their favorite food? Do they like rainy days? Do they like animals? These small things might not seem like much, but they can help your player immerse their character further into the story when you include these things around them. A big one is who they know, and using this as a hook to place their family around the map, or even just their friends or acquaintances around the map, means whenever you do go to somewhere new or travel to a location that the players haven't been before, you can always say that there's a chance they run into somebody they know to help give them more information. Having someone they know from their character backstory in a place might make getting there seem like a less daunting task. Professions are another really good way to include something from your character's backstory that can link them to a current situation in the world. Someone having used to be a tailor could mean they recognize noble houses, and that could give them subtle clues into what's going on in the politics of Waterdeep. A blacksmith knowing what kind of knife was used in a murder in a back alley might give you even more clues as to where to go next. This helps your players make their characters feel like they've existed in the world before they've started adventuring, which further solidifies their investment and immersion. Oh, hey, just while you're here, it would mean the absolute world to me if you guys could hit that subscribe and like button down below. Also, you can check out my Patreon. It's got a bunch of free stuff you can join as a free member. There's something out every single week. There's monsters, maps, and magic items. There's also a blog post which has a lot of really helpful info for new Dungeon Masters. So spread the word and click on that link. I also have some stuff up on the Dungeon Masters Guild. You can check those out. There's a few one-shots and some pre-generated character packs for new Dungeon Masters, so you can quickly start a game, hand out some character sheets. There's also new Drunken Master Monk, because let's face it, that subclass never really got the attention it deserved. And you can follow me everywhere at Critical Myths. Alright, back to the video. Okay, so my fourth tip here is creating an adventure for a single character, but also for the whole party. Creating an adventure here should be pretty easy once you ask the questions from previously about what that character wants or what they're after and how they intend to get it. It sort of depends on the scope here, but one good way I've found to really kind of push your players into getting into these sort of backstory adventures is providing them with a moral conundrum. So the obstacle in their way is very kind of morally grey. How they intend to get the thing they're after might not be as easy as that seemed when they first started adventuring. Using who they know and where they're from can create a sort of fake sense of nostalgia for that player and character and really drive them towards the objective. I talked about scope a second ago, but realistically, you can scale all of these things as high or as low as you want. You don't always have to complete the entire backstory arc in one go. Take it little by little and slowly move your character towards their goal. This could just mean a piece of information here and a piece of information there that they find out while on another adventure altogether. Remember, you don't need to have closure every single time a story starts. Well, not until your campaign's almost over at least. Remember, just because they defeated one enemy doesn't mean they defeated the enemy. Try and have your other characters that aren't directly related to the backstory character arc that you're on, related to the story on more than just a surface level. Give them real goals and real serious things to consider that are not just entirely in the hands of the character that the backstory is currently about. The current character's story arc does mean that that player and that character are going to have more context for the information that comes up. So having that character explain all that information in character is a very good idea. Getting other players invested in another character's backstory isn't always easy, but if you remind the players that they're a cohesive party, they're friends, they're working together, and that helping their friend will benefit everybody, is a quick reminder that it is a good idea to help out when they can. And if your players can see that you are putting this much effort in as a Dungeon Master for one character's backstory, they are probably going to assume that you're going to put at least, if not more, into theirs. Now, my last sort of point here, number 5, is tying all of these backstories in together in a meaningful way. This, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not sugarcoating it, this is gonna be difficult, okay? Because tying different characters from different regions around the world into one cohesive story that's all about all of them, all the time, everywhere, all the things, is very difficult. I mean, the easiest way to do it is just by having the big bad evil guy be the one that's pulling the strings behind all the activities going on in their backstories. You can do that. I have found that some players just enjoy having their character finish their character arc and having some closure. I once had a character who, from his backstory, his previous adventuring party was attacked by a purple dragon. They had frozen them all in some kind of time stasis. When they found the purple dragon's lair and they found the old characters encased in this sort of gem-like crystal and released them from it and defeated the purple dragon, that was more than enough for that player, and they were perfectly happy with their character's backstory ending there and not needing to be tied in to the overall story. But if you want a more solidified background story to tie into the overall campaign, a really good way to do this is at character creation, when you are creating backstories, have all of the characters know each other in some way. This will definitely make it easier for the other players to kind of answer to the call to action when one of the other characters' backstories starts to come up, and it also motivates that character to really kind of engage with the other players. But like I said previously, using the villain is really the easiest way to go when all your characters decide that their backstories don't really intertwine at all. So when you really want to include all these backstories in the overall story of the campaign, intertwined with the big bad evil guy, you can't just have the big bad evil guy go, he's doing this, what are you guys going to do about it? You really have to be, he's doing this because of this, and you know why, because it's part of your backstory. That's right, it was all part of the villain's plan to get the characters involved in the first place. He was pulling the strings, and he was showing them where to go because he needed them to complete his mission. The villain knows the party, and the party knows the villain. They just don't know it yet. The how and why are completely up to the characters' backstories and you as a DM to come up with something interesting, throw a little plot twist in there for them to figure out. And if they do figure it out too early, that's great. Don't confirm it, but just have them suspicious the whole time until it gets revealed. Don't forget to throw in red herrings. I know a lot of this last part seems really vague, but unfortunately, it's really hard to pinpoint exactly how to explain it without knowing your character's backstories or the kind of campaign that you're setting. Speaking of starting a campaign,